You have been told many lies of Middle-earth.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another full dissection, recap, and review for The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. I am here as a intermediate lead for this because our official lead, the Queen, has returned. And I'm talking about Nat. Nat, what's going on?
Hello, everyone. Nice to be back. Oh.
Had to shift power here.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get used to it. Because we have our fearless leader, Sam, and we have Jorge with us. I can't just do this talk alone. Come on now. We got to talk about Rings of Power, second episode. Did it even have a title?
It did, but it's not on the registration that we did for the screens for whatever reason.
But anywho, yeah, so we have 4 different story arcs going with The Lord of the Rings, and I'm back from a business trip. I rushed to try and watch and catch up so I can join you guys for this discussion because, I mean, it's Rings of Power, it's Lord of the Rings. We got Elrond story arc, which was adorable. We got Galadriel trying to fight a sea serpent and just almost drowning. And then we got this strange man killing fireflies but creating constellations at the same time. And then we have poor Arondir getting kidnapped by these orcs, and at least, Bronwyn and Theo getting in some orc action by, beheading one so they can warn their village who weren't listening about orcs coming. So yeah, we got 4 different story arcs going, and we're wondering how it all is going to eventually connect. And Sauron is probably at the thick of it. We just don't know how. So I wanted to talk about first Galadriel, because my girl was going through it. She decided, I'm not going to die. So so she's like just chilling in the sea, and so she gets picked up by these people, and they're shipwrecked because there's a sea serpent killing folk, and we see the sea serpent and it is huge. Yeah. So I wanted to get an idea of y'all's thoughts about that scene or that sequence of events there, because there was only 2 survivors after all that. So what did you think about the scope of it? What did you think about it visually? Just what did you think overall about what you think Galadriel's focus is now that, she has an idea now that orcs are starting to attack people now?
Yeah, I think that the moment that she jumped off the boat, it went to what her brother whispered to her about how to identify what to do. And for her, she still hasn't touched darkness yet. She still hasn't connected with it. She knows it's there. She can feel it in her bones. It's not just the trauma, but she knows it's there. And then when she saw literally the light shooting through the sky, she's like, okay, I know what I need to do, but now I'm in the middle of the ocean. Yeah. What the heck am I going to do? And I was like, what is this girl really going to do realistically? And so when she intercepted these group of people, to me, it was just like, humanity, you know what I'm saying? Like their perspective on their racial bias, like their willingness to survive. Cause first somebody was trying to help her up, and then they threw her to the side, like, no, we don't trust this person. No, we need to keep our resources best we can. So it became a survival of the fittest. Like it became the essence of why she's fighting is not just to avenge her brother, but to banish and relinquish all forms of darkness. And I think that she got that refortified in this episode, in the sequence alone with the water stuff. But I loved the serpent scene. There's a shot, and I think I talked about it when we did our non-spoiler, Jorge, of when the serpent just started attacking everybody, and she was swimming away. And you could see in the background, people are screaming, yelling, and she did not look back at all. She was just going. the way they shot that, like you don't see shots like that in movies. Like I was like, that could be the new Jaws. Like the way that they handled the CG, the way they handled the camera angles, even they kept on going up and down underwater and above water. Like it was amazing. Yeah. But yeah, Jorge, I don't know. You can expound on that.
And for me, the part that was most impressive to me was right before she jumped off the ship. Because it literally, like, it felt like you were going to church, like, and the choir's hitting perfectly, and you just felt this, like, you literally, like, I'm getting goosebumps now, like, you felt like the harmony that was going on there. Yep. And for her to just kind of not snap out of it in a sense, but just kind of get that feeling and just going with it, I thought was just such a powerful moment for her. But no, I do agree when that serpent was coming, that was legit, like the new Meg or the new like Jaws, enter whatever sea monster was there. But it was interesting how I believe right before I believe it was right before she saw the ship and all that, she covered her ears with with her hair, because she knew that she was going to get some type of backlash.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because it was just such an awareness of what's happening, but still going towards them, asking for help in that type of regards. But no, that scene was done so well, and they made something that was probably shot in like an Olympic-sized pool seem like you were in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, like terrifying. Like it was just done so well. Like this one, that was a huge highlight for me, that scene.
See, the thing with this, as much as I loved the scene, the character Galadriel, we know that she survives throughout the Lord of the Rings. So when she's placed in danger like that, or how she's going to survive, it just seems like the stakes aren't as there. Other people around her maybe, but not her, because she somehow survives. So like when she's placed in danger, do you think that's going to be a hindrance to the show every time she's placed in a battle scene, every time she's like in some form of danger? Or do you think because of how it's done, it's not going to matter?
I personally think the way that it's done, it's not going to matter. It's kind of like when I looked at Arrow, right? And I watched like the show Arrow, and I would see Oliver Queen just getting like tortured or hurt or whatnot. I know Oliver's going to make it through. I know Black Canary is going to make it through, but it's the way that the storytelling and the progression of how through their traumas or through their trials, getting through it, how that's executed refines the experience. Because it's kind of like, I didn't put two and two together that Galadriel was the same as that Galadriel from The Lord of the Rings. I didn't. I personally really didn't, even though I had seen the originals. But then I really looked at the Fellowship of the Ring and I was like, oh, okay. But the weird thing about that, the way that they're showing her character progression, I care more about her than I ever have. Like it's adding more for me and speaking more volumes about what her capability is versus her just being like a presence. You know what I mean? Like it's like she's always looked like an aura of power. But with this, now I'm like, oh, she's a whole pound. Like she's serious. So for me, that's what's happening for me through this show. Like I'm appreciating her so much more, which is interesting. But.
And I am not gonna lie, I didn't make that connection until you literally just said that. So I don't think it will matter to me, but now knowing that I know she ain't gonna die, it's gonna make it a little bit nicer. But no, I literally didn't make that connection. So that's actually kind of unique. I guess for someone who, isn't a diehard fan that understands and knows all the lore, not like that didn't click until you said it. So for me, I felt very terrified for her, and I was just like, oh man, here's this like, Xena warrior princess about to die over this like sea monster. But I do think that they will, even in the positions that they put her in, I think just because it's shot so well, I think that's something this show does very well, is it makes you feel the emotions that you need to feel. Because even in some of the other scenes that I'm sure we'll talk about in this show, there's certain things that happen, certain camera angles when they get really tight on someone, like you feel that claustrophobicness, like you feel all that. So yeah, I think I don't think that will hinder, at least for me, not too much from it.
Yeah, and I also thought that she was the main character. And that's the other thing. So like the focal point to me was her. So I was kind of like, I didn't necessarily think she was gonna die, but I didn't know what this all was gonna look like. And she's going through it. Like they're putting her through the ringer since the first episode, since the opening of the first episode.
Yeah.
And do you find it interesting that we haven't really felt magical elements? Because we've seen a little bit of magic from the elves, from the Lord of the Rings, but we haven't really seen it too much here. We've mostly seen them fighting. And yes, we do know them as warriors as well. So I was wondering what your thoughts on that, or do you think that's part of the Rings influence?
So that was what I thought, because when she did her I think she was a narrator, when she did her monologue and talking about, like, I was like, oh, this feels like the Fellowship of the Ring, but then they didn't talk about the rings.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's interesting. So have the rings not been dispersed out yet? So I don't know. I think that would be a really interesting twist. And also it would make sense for the little title, like the Rings of Power.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what they're gonna go for. So I mean, yeah, the only magical thing that we've seen at this point is the stranger that literally fell from who knows where and has so much power that everything around him shakes or disintegrates or dies, which I guess we'll talk about.
Yeah, I was going to talk about him next, but real quick, let's wrap up Galadriel. So the guy that winds up rescuing her, were you getting Strider vibes from him at all? I was getting Strider vibes for real.
I was, actually. I really was. It was really weird because I was like, is that who that is? This his family? I really didn't know.
Right.
I really didn't know, but I think that they're gonna do something with that, because she singled him out. She was like, oh, whoa, so orcs are this, like, I need you to tell me what's going on. And he just didn't trust her. But then the weird thing was he put his life out on the line to make sure he protected her, because he saw her protecting him. Like, she wrapped that thing around her stomach in the middle of the storm to try to save him. And he recognized that. And he was like, you know what? I need to protect this person. Like, she's trying to protect other people. So it's definitely some nobleness about him. But I'm not sure. All
right, so good segue into the man that fell from the sky and my girl Nori and Poppy. So again, I'm thinking, especially with these story arcs, they're definitely bringing elements of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, because this duo definitely reminds me a little bit of Merry and Pippin as well as Sam and Frodo. Yeah. Like you definitely get the Hobbit vibe. And I really think these are like their ancestors, or like, the traveling part of the Hobbits, who had like, the little hidden little villages, because they like to be like isolated as well. But, this man falls from the sky. He seems to know magic, but he seems to bring death with him too, or some form of decay. Yeah. So I was like, wait, could that be Sauron, or just someone that unfortunately just has this weird magic that he has no idea who he is? I don't know what y'all's thoughts about that.
Yeah, I actually think we talked about that in our non-spoiler, where we said it could be, or maybe it was when we were just talking naturally.
Yeah, we never got into it because we didn't talk about our non-spoiler, because we were like, I had two different theories. I was like, it could be Sauron, which makes more sense.
Yeah.
but then it's weird what's going on with Theo and the sword.
Yep.
But
Which
then I was like, well, could it be Gandalf? I really have absolutely no idea. It is a very interesting little mystery, but he is very essential, specifically in this episode when he was working with all the symbols. I don't know what those symbols were.
Yes.
I was curious for somebody that knows like the Lord of the Rings lore, like if they knew what that was he was working with. But the fact that with his magic, we've seen it, there's fire and there's decay and death. Like those fireflies, he activated them. It was all beautiful until they died. Like they all died. And I think that even what's the other elf's name? Oh
Poppy?
my god.
Poppy?
The dad?
No, I was talking the warrior.
Gilwood?
The warrior. With
Arundel.
Arundel. So remember in the last episode, they had said that some area it looked like there was like a decay of plant life, and I was like, that seems really familiar, you know. So I there's something going on with him, and I don't think it's good. I really don't. But I think it would be a good twist for him to be a good character, though. I don't know. I'm torn.
Yeah, what do you think, Jorge?
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna be a good character. I think he's gonna be straight evil. Because I found it, when he was drawing those symbols at that one scene when they were just trying to communicate for a second, and I found it so neat how they kept flashing over to her dad trying to lift up the tent, and it was almost like I think he did something with like the stick or something, and literally you just see the dad's ankle just like snap. So I think that part was what for me what made it seem very quickly as this dude is not going to be good. But it'll be interesting to see how he affects those two that have been kind of, for better lack of terms, like showing him love, like giving him some type of shelter, trying to communicate. And I found it very interesting how as soon as I forgot what the second friend who came down to see, and
Poppy.
he kind of got angry and whatnot, and she was like, no, that's a friend. And he just kind of chilled out for a minute. I found that to be very unique because for me, it's like what you were saying, Sam, like he brings only like decay and death, and for him to just have that moment of restraint, that's the only part that gives me a glimmer of hope for him. But nah, if I was a betting man, he's gonna be evil.
Which sucks because they probably they don't need more problems, especially with the orcs. Like seriously. But I also was thinking, well, I don't think he intentionally meant to break her dad's foot. Maybe he had some foresight into that, or maybe it was just him trying to figure stuff out, and unfortunately in the process it was kind of like coincidental events happening that caused negative effects. So does he, I mean, it seems like he just has no memory of who he is. So when do you think at some point throughout this season or even next season he's going to figure out who he is, if any?
Oh, he's definitely going to figure out by the end of the season.
Yeah. I was curious. Yeah.
I found it, everything that's going on with all the different arcs are leading down a specific path. And the fact is, if you look at the first episode, he was the focal point that everybody saw in the sky. So he's going to be the linchpin that's going to bring us to Sauron in some way, shape, or form. Whether or not he's going to be the thing to help, or he is. But he's connected for sure.
Well,
by the end of the season, he's going to know.
He's been the only thing so far that's connected all the arcs happening. So I think he is going to play a very pivotal role in this. But it's I just don't know which way he's gonna go. I guess it's the nicest way I'll put it. It's like for me, it's all pointing to evil, but and it could be now that I'm thinking about that scene. he could have had foresight that her dad was going to break his leg. And it's almost, it could have been that, you know, like when you're speaking to someone in a different language and they don't understand you and they're just trying to explain something.
Yeah.
I wonder if that, so that could give me a glimmer of hope for him. If that's what he was trying to explain, like, your dad's about to break his foot. Like, he's a, and she wasn't understanding the urgency of it. So that could be a, you know, a glimmer of hope, but
yeah, and let's be real, it's Steve Joker's fault that he broke his leg. it put pressure on the dad.
well, not only that, but he's also the guy that's been like looking at this book with all these symbols that seem to be similar symbols that, you know, this mysterious being has been trying to write and communicate with Nori. So what role will he play in hopefully communicating with the guy? Because eventually they're going to have to let people know that this dude exists. So what are your predictions with that?
yeah, actually, I mean, next episode, I can see it happening next episode, because it'll be one of those things where they're like, "Oh, where were you?" type of stuff, and them having to say. But no, I think it's gonna be unique when they introduce, like, when she kind of puts it together that this, you know, this other guy could help her, you know, understand the symbols. And I could foresee it, you know, being one of those cheesy moments where she's talking with him and sees the book and it's open to a page and she just recognizes one of the characters. And it's going to be like, well, what's this? You know, where did you get this from? Or what's this all about? But I think in terms of, you know, being welcomed into their little village, I don't see that happening.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be an interesting kind of dynamic to see what will happen with, you know, with that kind of relationship. If they're just going to kick him out to the curb, or if she's still going to continue to help and assist him, because she definitely seems like a little bit of a rebel, you know, because she was like, they went out, she fed them, like, you know, those berries and all that stuff. And I think it was when they noticed something and she was like, we gotta go. You know, like, but just still very calm and all that. And it wasn't until later on where they were like, you took them to the old farm, didn't you? And she was just very like coy about it. So I think that relationship will be an interesting one to see how that grows. Because I think obviously Village will say no, but it'll be, what does she do at that moment?
Yeah, I unfortunately believe that the Hobbit's going to have a tragic end. I mean, they could, you know, make it really safe, but I really feel like specifically with her character, she's going to lose someone. It may be her best friend, maybe something happens to her sisters or her dad, but I don't see this ending well. And I think that the foreshadowing was the wolf or whatever was there, that there's impending danger there. She knew about it. She didn't tell him, and she kept him safe by getting them to go, but she never talked about it. And now she's done the same exact thing again. But this is going to have irreparable damage across everywhere. So it's like, what happens when, you know, other people start to be like, yo, have you guys seen this person? And the village is hindered because of it, because she kept it a secret. So it's gonna be blowback off of her helping him. I think she's meant to help him, but there's a cost with doing stuff like that. I definitely think that.
And it could be a combination. So what I'm thinking is, like, somehow the dog or whoever she saw before attacks the village. Maybe he tries to help, but maybe makes things worse in the process, and it just causes this great calamity. So we all have our predictions here, so we'll just see what happens. But there's just definitely something's gonna happen. Orc dog, yeah, we'll just call it orc dog for now.
It'll be demon dog when he's done with it.
Wait, right. was it in The Hobbit where orcs were riding on
I feel like that was still like the second movie of the Lord of the Rings.
Twin Tower or
The Two Towers.
The Two Towers, yeah.
Yeah, and they had that big battle, and then like Strider almost got killed by one of them or something like that, or he lost the ring or the necklace or something along those lines.
Yeah,
but I felt like that reminded me definitely of those dogs, and I think they even had them in the Hobbit too. They had them in both movies.
Yeah, so it could be like an orc on top of one of those things, and they're just trying to scout the area because they know. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. I like not knowing. I really do.
Right? No, I do. That's what theories are for.
Right.
So speaking of orcs, we got Theo, Bronwyn, and Arondir. Arondir, I don't know what's going to happen with Arondir. We got this love thing going on with them. In the first episode, you see hints of it, but then you see him get kidnapped. We don't know if he's going to survive, what's going to happen. Then we have Theo and this sword.
Oh my god!
I feel like it's Sauron's sword, and now his blood is connected to the sword. And I've always wondered, like, where did Sauron get the idea of the One Ring, like being able to control things? So could it be that this is how he thinks of it? Like, or how did he think, okay, well, let me just create a ring and control everybody? Like, what? I always wondered about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering if this would be like a good way of segging into that. But what did you think of like the orc just coming out the woodwork and just like Bronwyn and Theo, luckily managing to capture it and behead it? Like, what did you think of that scene?
You go ahead first.
Yeah, no, I think it. So that scene is very hard to talk about in a solo sense, because I think that scene also paired up with is it Arn? Yeah. I think those two kind of meshed so well, because I think both those scenes, you felt so much fear. Like when he's digging through the caves and you can see that part where it's just like so shrunken down, like that was terrifying. And then he jumps up past the water, and he is just like sword, or at that point he just had, I think, the dagger out, but he's just ready to like go ham on whatever comes out through the water. For him to get taken from behind, like that was done awesome. But you kind of have that same kind of terror happening when you have, a little kid hiding in that little cupboard area. And then once the mom comes in and kind of sees everything that's happening, she ends up hiding, in like that little like pantry looking thing. So it's just, you get this feeling of just like, oh God, like, are they really going to kill this little kid this early on? But you kind of see, it's the whole saying, like, you never mess with Mama Bear. And like Mama Bear came out, and, I loved how she just kind of grabbed the head, threw it up on there, and was like, we at dawn. Like, as soon as the sun goes up, we out. And I just thought that was such a, like, just such a powerful moment for her. And it was one of those things where it's like no one, in the sense, was taking her serious. And, all it takes is her beheading one of these things for people to be like, oh, she's on to something here. But no, I thought that episode was done great. And it was both of those. One was very dark and one was, very light. And they still ensued the same fear, which I thought was so neat. And realistically, you never even see what was chasing either one of them really clearly, but just the fact that you felt that something was there. I think that was the part that sold it for me. It's like, that was done well.
Yeah, the sense of suspense was definitely there. I mean, I honestly hadn't felt that kind of suspense since Frodo's situation that he had to go through
with the spider.
Like it felt like that. But I think that the weird thing about this show is that it's paced really well with so many characters, because they first they had the son kind of wondering to the mom, like, why are you sitting there hanging out with this elf? And then the son got a chip on his shoulder talking with his friend, and they're sitting there playing with the sword. The friend gets poked with the sword. And then, you know, you lead that into later on where it's like, wait, he hears something in the floors. And so he gets angry and starts punching in the floors, and then something comes out. And you're like, wait, what happened to him? You know what I'm saying? Like they cut to another arc instead of just going with it. And that's building more suspense until the mom comes home and we're like, flip, where's the son? Did he get kidnapped? No, he's somewhere into the side. But that's just great storytelling. Like that's great build of suspense. And also even the way they shot it, because realistically, he told her, he's like, look, go get help, like run, mom. And she's like, nah, I'm not leaving you here. I'm not doing that. I'm not gonna run the risk. If I can't get you out, I'm not leaving either. And any mother would do that. So initially I was kind of like, yo, are you dumb? Like he said leave, but it's like that's her son. That's the only thing she has left. So it was interesting to see that. But I think you're right, Jorge. Like watching him go under into the corridors, and he was looking to the left and to the right. He didn't know what was coming. Yeah. And then he just grabbing the dagger and running. And I was like, that's smart. Like, as opposed to trying to sit there and fight on two different fronts, you don't know what's there. Like, you don't have that much ground. So I love the way they filmed that. And I love the desperation behind it. But even more than, like I said, the buildup for that was the last moments that they communicated. Like, he was really close to her. And then he was like, I got to go. You know, like Batman style. Like, look, I got a job to do kind of thing. So yeah, I love the little family, even though the son Theo, he's getting on my nerves messing with that sword, because that there's gonna be ramifications to that. Yeah, there really are. And I don't know if Theo's gonna survive it. And I also don't know who Theo's dad is. So
yeah, we don't know nothing about daddy. We just know that he gone.
He's getting milk. He'll be back.
Right. He's getting milk. He'll be back. No, but it's kind of like, could he turn into Sauron? Like, we just don't know. Because we have this mystery man that could be Sauron, and then we have Theo who's messing with this sword that could become Sauron because of the sword.
Right.
So this episode, there was tension with this, and there was tension with Galadriel because of. And even a little bit with Nori, because we didn't know what this mystery man was going to do. Right. So this episode definitely built tension in different ways, and it works because you're starting to be like, okay, I care about what happens to you. I need to know what's going to happen, and trying to predict or trying to guess where it may go, even though you know it's going to eventually connect. But how is it going to connect? Right. So now that was just, I agree with both of y'all. The tension in both of those scenes were great, and I'm glad that she, cut the head off to show proof, because she could have burned him and no one would have believed her anyway. But she had to show proof in order for the village to go with her. But because I think Theo has the sword, I think the orcs know about the sword. I think that's what they were looking for, and so now they're going to follow the villagers, which again. Ramifications, and we don't know where Eridan is going to come into this. Maybe he'll come to the rescue at the last minute. But I also think it was interesting that the village, apparently either that and the village before that, supported Morfydd. So there was like some tension with them and the elves anyway. Yep. So it's like, well, why would you attack the village that supported your follower unless you just don't care anymore? Exactly.
Yeah. It's a good question. I don't know. Those villages are shady.
No, these aren't the orcs that were following, that were part of the war initially. I guess. They're like, we don't care. And then we're like, how are they creating the orcs? Because we saw that from episode 1. Galadriel, when she was in the castle, and she saw this little nook or cranny or some kind of book saying, or showing some kind of dark magic. Yeah. So where are these orcs coming from? How are they being created? Who is being used to create these orcs? Right. So that's what makes me think Arondir is in danger, may become an orc, this is where my brain was going when I was seeing when he got kidnapped. I'm like, is he going to become an orc? And is he going to recognize Bronwyn and Theo somehow, some way, but get killed in the process? I don't know, because of that whole love Romeo Juliet thing. I just don't know.
As far as I know, there's only one scientist that's working on a secret project, and that's his brother right here. And I don't trust him for a lick. I don't trust him, bro. I don't.
Well, based on what Wiki and descriptions of the Silmarillion and some of the old tales is that he is the dude that created the rings for the elves. So something tells me that we're starting to get that whole special project, which is going to be the rings.
Oh, God.
Here we go, rings of power. And that's why Elrond, now good segue, thank you, Sam. He goes to visit his, homeboy Durin, who he hasn't seen in 20 plus years. And Jorge, I think it was you and Sam that mentioned time and elves and how it works differently between elves and everyone else. And you saw that. They showed us that with the, friendship between Elrond and Durin. And I thought it was interesting how, he tried to have a, front, so to speak, and had to, show face with his followers or, the people of the kingdom. But I feel like he low-key knew what his wife was going to do anyway when he was like saying, oh, you can apologize. And so Disa was like, oh yeah, he can stay for dinner. Yeah. He knew she was going to do that. So he was trying to save face. He knew he was going to forgive him. So just that scene was probably like the most wholesome scene in the movie. And I love that we finally get introduced to her because I was waiting for her to show up. And I love her character, just a few minutes that we got with her. I hope we get more. But what did y'all think about that scene and just what it represented as far as like the friendship between elves and dwarves? Because it definitely reminded me of the dynamic between Gimli and Legolas from Lord of the Rings. Again, they are trying to hint or give us, some form of familiarity with some of the characters by, reminding us of the characters from Lord of the Rings and or The Hobbit. So, what did you guys think?
Yeah, I think that they set these characters up so well because I didn't know what kind of character Elrond was. From the first episode, it was kind of like, oh, he's a scholar. He may have done some stuff that got himself in trouble, but what is he really about? And then when he was like, oh, okay, I'm going to visit a friend, they didn't let him in. And then he kind of was like, yo, what's going on? And then he was like treated like a certain kind of way. Yeah. And he was given immediate pushback. I think that this was not just a wholesome part of this series so far. I think it's one of the most important parts because the whole point of fighting evil, you have to work together. And it's kind of like building blocks of what is going on. Just the small little subtle conversations, whether it was with this amazing Black Queen right here, bringing them together and challenging them as men to get over it, or whether it's just them having real conversation. I think that it's so essential to where this needs to go. For good or bad, or evil or good, like they're going to have to all work together. So I really did love everything about these characters from this point. I think this added much volumes to Elrond because one, I didn't know he was that strong. I was like, oh, okay, he might be in a fight. He might have a little bit of strength to him. But even deeper than that, like history, like who has he interacted with? Who has he been with? And I think that, Jorge is going to expound on it. But one of the things that we were talking about as soon as we finished watching the episodes, like the understanding of time is so different. It's so vastly different for like elves. And it's kind of like for them, it's like maybe like a year. But for everybody else, that's like 20 years. But I'll let Jorge riff off of that because he had a really interesting perspective on it.
Yeah, no, this one, I mean, there was a lot of emotions and stuff that came out. This one was probably the one that invoked the most out of me because, not only, I think he could have kept going when it came to like the breaking the rock, like going back and forth, but he knew like he messed up. And he knew his friend was stubborn enough and would keep going. So he did, like the fake, like, hey, I give up. You're more superior to me. But when they were on that like elevator type thing, and he looked at him and he was like, oh, I haven't seen you in a little bit. It's only, I think he said it like it's only been 20 years or something like that. And the way he said, like, you've missed like my life, like
Right.
you missed my marriage, you've missed my kids. And you just felt the sadness, like it's like your best friend not being there for you.
Right.
And I thought it was such a beautiful way, instead of apologizing for that, because the guy, he was like, well, what do you have to say about that? And he literally like just kind of looked him in the eye and made sure he was paying attention. He was said, I'll just say congratulations. Like it was almost like it hit him at that point that for him, it literally probably felt like, oh, I just haven't seen you in like a week or two. Because you gotta think these guys lived for like 500 years. But for someone like a dwarf, who I think, life expectancy is probably what, like 40, 50 years, it's such a vast difference that a day to them is so much more important than, 3 years or 4 years for an elf. Like for an elf, that's like a blink of an eye. And the way that happened, and just even once he introduced him to like his wife and all that, it's just little things where when you have like a friend who you haven't seen in a while and they haven't seen your kids, and your kids, like, it was the, like, for me, like legit cutest scene, seeing his kids running around with those giant like little masks on, like running into each other's. But then you kind of see like his wife stole every scene she was in.
Absolutely.
He didn't have that many talking points, but it was such a beautiful way that she was able, in food heals everything, but through a little bit of food and a little bit of like time together, just to kind of mend that gap. Because as I'm sure he must have told her, throughout time, like, like, I miss him, like I wish he was here. You could almost feel that, yes, he was angry at him, but he's probably talked to her about him countless times.
Yeah.
So for her to finally meet him and literally like bridge that so quickly, it was just such a beautiful thing. But that scene, like when they were on that elevator, like moving up, like that broke me, because literally, like, I'm trying to imagine if like my best friend was able, like, missed my wedding, missed the birth of both my children, like, mentally it'd be so hard to forgive someone like that.
Yeah.
And for that whole scene to play out the way it did, it was so nice. And I did love that, instead of saying like, I'm sorry, like instantly he turned that into like just such a positive, like, I would say congratulations to you. And like, he was just so proud, and you could tell he felt remorse for missing it. And even throughout that, just the way he was acting, you can sense his sadness that he missed these very important moments from his friend. And I know I'm rambling on this one, but that scene, that whole little arc there, really, like, just, obviously you can tell it touched me, and all like the little heartstrings and all that stuff, because it was just good. It was very well done.
Oh, the other thing I was going to say is the tree. So I think that they did a really good setup with showing the tree as vast as it was in the first episode, and then watching it just get demolished from like their homeland, for Doran to go and preserve it for years, even being like talked down upon for believing it could actually be grown in like the darkness. And for Elrond to be like, well, it didn't have any choice. Like, it's centered around y'all's love. And, I was like,
I'm getting
that's
teary.
real. That's real. Because one, it means something to both of them. It meant something to Elrond, one, to have that piece of his home be kept with his best friend. But even deeper than that, it shows so much more volumes for Durin that he still very much so loves and respects him, even in spite of him being mad at him, which is beautiful. Because I think she said like he cared for that thing like it was our third child.
Like Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. Like, it was just beautiful, that whole sequence, and you actually see a loving relationship. Yes, you have Bronwyn and Arundor, but you didn't really see them together because they really can't. So you see an actual loving relationship, but also a friendship. Because yes, you saw Galadriel and Elrond be friends, but there was also this different tension between them because of everything that's going on, and her quest, her focus on the quest, that it kind of like she doesn't have time to really develop relationships or friendships because of her focus. So to see this friendship repaired in the course of this episode, it gives you hope. So it kind of like, this episode kind of like gave you different themes here. It was starting to show the themes of darkness, light, and the power of friendship, so to speak. So yeah, I think overall this was a really good episode, especially for the second one out the gate. We'll see about this third episode. As long as they build this momentum, and I think because of the way that they're doing the story arcs and the different story arcs, I think it'll be fine. I don't know. What do you guys think? Any lasting thoughts? Any lasting impressions or patterns that you're seeing, just even so far with the first two episodes?
This isn't a jab at another show, but
it is low key.
I love how they're handling location, like showing you on the map where you're actually located.
Yeah.
Showing you time in the progression of it. And making sure you connect with these characters. Like, I mean, Doran just showed up in the second episode, and I am all the way there for him. You know what I mean? Like I love that. I love that I actually care about each individual character. And I said this in our non-spoiler that the story threads and there's so many different characters, they're going to keep adding on to more characters. But it reminds me of Stranger Things. Stranger Things benefited from being able to thwart between the different story arcs, allow you to care about the characters, and also give like a central focus. The focus is still there. And the second episode and the first episode, to me, feel like one in tandem. Like if they had just said, this is the startup movie to this movie forward, because it feels like a movie. Like I think one of us accidentally said this is a movie. And it feels like it. Like from a cinematic level, like it looks like a movie. It moves like a movie. It feels like this is a 6 to 7 hour movie, and they've just been breaking it up in small little halves, and it's just paced perfectly. So I love the second episode. I didn't have any issues with it. I really don't. I don't have anything to knock it down about. Like it gave me what I wanted. Like even like fight sequences, even like great cinematography, great score, great acting. Like, yeah, no, I don't have anything.
Jorge?
I'm the same. I think it's very rare when you have a show realistically make you connect and fall in love with characters so quickly. Yeah. And actually understand their relationships and all that. I think so far, this show is able to juggle multiple different story arcs without making it feel rushed and without making you feel like, they're just throwing stuff just to throw it on there. It's nice because you don't feel like there's any filler. Like they're building a foundation while still keeping you very engaged in what's happening and how things are going. And I think, in terms of, and I don't want to bash other shows, but in terms of doing, no, it's like in terms of being time jumps, like we know, just with the tree, for example, it's been 20 years, but you could kind of tell just by the couple comments that they've made, like how much that tree meant to him, and how much it did that. It wasn't just a, hey, here's the next episode, and look, you got 3 kids now all of a sudden. Like it's built it's built up to it.
I apologize.
I think though, so far, like, and me and Sam, I think both agree with this. Like, this is like a 10 out of 10. My only fear is, which I don't think will happen, but you kind of wonder if they're just putting everything out there in these first few episodes, and then it's going to trail off a little bit. With the budget that they have, I highly doubt that's going to happen. But it's going to be, I think it will be a great challenge to keep up this quality of work through. They're doing 8 episodes, right? On this, or is it 10 as well?
I feel like it's 8.
Yeah, it's 8.
Amazon usually does 8.
Yeah.
And it also depends on how long these episodes will be. I think they're going to be. Am I saying they're going to be slightly longer?
Yeah, I think the last one was like 1 hour and 5 or 1 hour and 10, something like that.
So I feel it will be very impressive if they can keep this pace going and all these different little storylines. I just hope that when they all intersect, it's a smooth intersection, basically. I hope they all merge them at the right pace and all that, where it doesn't feel rushed. Like, I hope they don't all merge on like episode 7. I hope there's a little bit of build-up time. But it's nice because you already see, I can see the elves and the I keep calling them hobbits, but the dwarves. I can see them forming a really strong, kind of like nucleus, where you kind of have your tanks up front and then like your bow and arrow shooters right behind them. I can see this getting set up for like a massive war and it working. So no, I'm really excited to see where this goes. But in terms of like, there's certain shots and there's certain parts in the way that they filmed this, where it's like, what a time to be alive that this is what's on TV.
Right.
Like, at the end of the day, like, this is on TV. It's not in the movies. And I'm sure if you put this in the movies, it would make a killing, especially with just how beautiful it looks. But you could pause this show just about at any point and you would have a beautiful, like, picture. Like, at any point, just about, even at the dark points, even all this, it's very hard to say anything negative about this, in terms of how it looks or how it's done or the pacing. Like, I have nothing negative to say. This is still, right now, this is top dog, that's for sure.
Dang.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say because I just feel like you guys have said it so eloquently. But real quick, I did notice that where Durin was, apparently there is it Casa Dune, and it was beautiful, city, waterfalls, what have you. And I think they showed that in Fellowship of the Ring, ruin, and we kind of the Battle of Moria or something along those lines. I think that's the same dwarf city that we found out about in Fellowship of the Ring that they hid, and we saw the Balrog.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think I have to do like another. Maybe I'll do that this week. Is just kind of try to cram through those 3 short films.
From what I've read, that's supposed to be the same place. So again, they're trying to, get you to think about Lord of the Rings a little bit, to see where it could be going in the future, or where it is in the future. So
I think one thing that I'll say at the end is, I never would have suspected that the quality of this, that I could start looking at this and I don't know where it's going to end up, but I could put these along the lines with the movies. Yeah. Like, literally, you know what I'm saying? Like, I could go and be like, all right, I'm going to watch this, and then immediately start looking at Fellowship of the Ring, and I wouldn't miss a step. Like, the quality is just there. Like, that's unheard of. Like, there's not a drop of quality. Yeah. So I think that is one of the things that this show has going for it. On top of great pacing, great acting, interesting characters, great action.
Yeah,
it's got the full package. But Nat, what were your final thoughts on the first episode and this one? Now that you've seen the first and second episode, what were your final thoughts?
I'm not gonna lie, I was tired when I was seeing the first episode, but I kind of woke back up. So I thought it was good, but I was like, I need to pay attention. It was more so I want to pay attention and not miss anything more than, just feeling sleepy or whatever. But both episodes I think are really good. I think they're setting it up really well. And like you said, the shots, the gorgeous cinematography, I'm in awe. And I know I say that a lot when I describe like cinematography, but how can I not? I'm in awe.
Dude.
I'm like, I want to go to these locations. Like,
yeah.
Can I go to these locations, please?
It's breathtaking, like the way that they show you some of this world, basically. Because it's like in other shows, you just kind of see like these small little glimpses, and here it's like you'll see the glimpse, but then the camera will like zoom out or it'll zoom up, and you kind of see the vastness of it, and it's spectacular. Yeah, like this is just, it's spectacular.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Hit us up next week. We'll definitely be talking about each episode as it airs. And we'll catch y'all next time.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.